Hello, this is the first of what I hope will be quite a long series of videos painting up and completing a collection of early 6th edition dwarfs for Warhammer Fantasy Battles and the Old World. I started this collection back in about early 2000s, in the late days of the original 6th edition army book. The price of metal miniatures, the release of the 6.5 edition book, conspired against me a bit, so I never really got very far with that collection. The only models that really remain from that time are Crag the Grim, over here, the Anvil of Doom, a few of the Ironbreakers in the middle, and a box of Dwarf Warriors which was since given away to a cousin when he started getting into the hobby. I've dipped in and out of Warhammer since then. I played quite a lot of Age of Sigmar with a Nurgle force that I painted up using the modern sculpts for those, but I had a large collection of Skaven as well from 6th edition. And I really started this collection of dwarves as it stands today when the Cities of Sigmar book released, but never fielded them, so they were still all unpainted from that time. I was a bit more deliberate about collecting these when the Old World got announced and we heard more about the release of those, and with the old sculpts going away, it was nice to be able to go back and find all of the early 6th edition metal ones that I'd wanted as a child but never really had the money to get. There's a certain poignancy to this series as well, with the very sad passing of Colin Dixon just over a month ago. Colin was an incredible sculptor. I didn't really realise at the time just how many of the sculpts that I was drawn to were his work. A lot of the early Skaven models that I had were all his, so the Plague Censer Bearers, the Plague Monks, Poison Wind Globadiers, Warp Fire Throwers, Gutter Runners, all of those were his work. But his most iconic sculpts would have to be the Dwarves. The Miners are, I believe, among, if not the first unit of dwarves that Colin sculpted on his own, as opposed to working with Ali Morrison as he did for the Thunderers. And these were 4th edition, so this is 1993 he made these sculpts, and they're really quite incredible, especially for that time. And they held up very well indeed. These continues to be the sculpts all the way through until 7th edition, I think. The other ones that he's particularly celebrated for are, of course, the Longbeards, which are, I would say, the most characterful unit of this range of dwarves. Try and focus there. Also the Ironbreakers here. Along with many of the characters, of course, and other units. Just to go through what I have here and what I'm kind of missing so far. As far as heroes, I've got both of them named heroes from this time, so King Alric and Thoric Ironbrow with the Anvil of Doom. You'll see Craggy is the only model so far that I've actually painted. This was done in a fit of boredom at some point during Age of Sigmar when I just wanted to paint something classic and metal. But everything else I've kind of left to do in one go. Other lords and heroes I have are this Dwarf Lord sculpt, which is actually my favourite character, I think, of the lot. I have solitary battle standard bearers banner, which some eBay seller helpfully included with Longbeards instead of the correct banner. So I have that, but not the model itself. Although I've found one since, which should be on its way soon. For other units, I have 16 Longbeards, so I might try and expand those to 20 at some point. I have far too many Ironbreakers, 23 at the moment, so we'll see how units work in the Old World, and they might be useful. 11 Rangers, again I ended up with quite odd numbers of some units, so I might try and fill those to 12. 12 Miners, 21, another odd one, of Thunderers, 10 Hammerers, so that's one that we'll definitely need a few more at some point. An organ gun and a cannon at the back. 20 warriors in that box, because I picked up some spares as well to make it up from 16. I have another 20 on sprue somewhere. And then little bags of shields that I've managed to pick up over the years as well. I'm not too fond of Quarrelers overall. The plastic sculpts just don't do as much for me as the metal ones. So I'm probably going to stick with Thunderers instead of adding Quarrelers. The other units that are remaining, of course, Slayers, they're the kind of most iconic one that are absent here, but I'm very much expecting those to be re-released with the Old World, so I will avoid eBay prices on those if I can and just pick them up through Games Workshop. Other units that are missing are the Gyrocopter, Flame Cannon, bolt thrower and rock lobber, but I can collect those at some point. An engineer as well is missing, and there's a few other kind of individual sculpts of runesmiths and things like that I might at some point pick up and lords, but they're not really essential for fielding anything at this point. I will be rebasing all of these onto 25mm squares, or whatever the correct ones end up being for the old world when we get that information. Even on 20mm, they don't still rank up perfectly. There are some little issues with large axes and things hitting each other that I'd rather just avoid. If I do ever play games of 6th edition again, it probably isn't too much of a difference just to use the 25mm squares anyway. I'm aiming to post updates for this on here as well as Instagram, possibly Twitter as well, both of which are under the same name as the channel, Mini Agnostic. I realise there's a certain irony in that being the channel's name and then exclusively doing Games Workshop things on here so far, but I will be playing other things at other times, so that will hopefully be a bit more relevant in the future. So that's where we stand today. I'm not sure how quickly I'll be able to work on this over the year, but my aim is by the end of the year to have everything painted up and fieldable. So we'll see where it goes. But anyway, thank you for watching, and just have to pick now which unit to paint first.